What's good, my people? This is gonna be my first ever YouTube video on the channel, so we're just gonna yap. So hopefully you guys enjoy. So we'll start this off by introducing myself. My name is Keenan Malloy. I've been into fitness my whole life. I've played soccer, football, for pretty much 20 years. I'm 28 years old, born and raised in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Never lived anywhere else. And my first introduction into fitness outside of soccer was CrossFit. And I started CrossFit with my mom when I was like 17, I believe. And it was around the same time that I also did weight training in high school. And I was absolutely pathetic. I was benching like a plate for like 6 reps when I was 17 years old. So I've been training for 11 years. I'm 28 now. I started when I was 17. First introduction was CrossFit and weight training. And I got introduced to a weightlifting coach named Johnny. Shout out Johnny. He's not going to see this, but he essentially taught me how to deadlift. He taught me how to squat. He taught me how to bench press. He taught me how to clean. He taught me how to clean and jerk, snatch, you name it, right? So I had a solid foundational level of understanding of movement and how to move and how to perform these basic movements from a young age. Also, I've been rather athletic my whole life, with soccer, obviously. So it kind of just went hand in hand. And I've always been into fitness, especially just like researching and stuff like that. But obviously over time, I've just gotten more and more obsessed with it. So after CrossFit era / weight training, outside of high school, or just like nearing the end of high school, I got into the gym with my boy Mazen. Again, he's not going to see this, but essentially he got me into actually training at a gym. We would be doing some sort of powerlifting program, I believe, at that time, you know, like the classic 3x5, 5x5, those types of programs, squat, bench, deadlift. I was never really strong at the bench. I think my best ever bench when I was like 18 or 19 was maybe like 2.5 plates for a single, which I know obviously there's like 16-year-old kids now that bench like 500 plus pounds, which is why you can't compare yourself with other people. But after that lasted maybe, I want to say 2 years or so, until I caught the bug right away. Once I started going to the gym and training, I loved it. And after about 2 years of doing that, I transitioned into doing some Renaissance periodization style training. I found Jared Feather. I found Dr. Mike Israetel. I started training like that for a bit, reps in reserve, adding volume across the mesocycle, microcycle, you know, all those terms. And then I found I was doing some Alpha Destiny stuff, rack pulls above the knee. I was doing some, what is this guy's name? Gregor or something. I'll have to think about it. He was, I've done like P90X. I've done literally everything that you could possibly think of outside of your typical bro split, I have done. But the biggest inspiration that kind of took me outside of that weightlifting era was Jordan Peters. And I found Jordan Peters maybe 4 years into training. So at least 7 years now. And once he had a lifetime subscription option on his site, I purchased that and I ate up every little piece of content that he could ever give me. And essentially I did push-pull legs. Another split that I ran for the longest split that I've ever run was push-pull arms legs. A big split that's very popular in the UK scene, like the bodybuilding scene, is push-pull off, legs off, because I would like to do heavy hinges on pull, and I would also do heavy hinges on legs. So having that day off and then having that day off before legs and after legs would really help recovery. But it's also just because I didn't really know how to program as well as I do now. So I ran that for a long period of time, and then I kind of bounced between push-pull legs, push-pull arms legs, upper, lower. I always knew about the benefits of full body and the higher frequency forever, except like a lot of you guys, I love training. I love being in the gym as much as I possibly can. Now I'm a little bit more busy, and I found what works for me and what I truly enjoy, but I can completely relate with people when they say that they hate rest days, because for a large period of my life, I absolutely could not stand rest days. They were like the worst days for me. So push, pull, arms, legs had me in the gym 6 days a week. It was a great split, except absolutely nobody needs an arm day. I don't care who you are. It's completely unnecessary. So after that, I got decently strong. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys who know me are probably tired of me talking about my back in my day heavy hinges that I used to do, but I honestly think that's what really built up a solid foundation of my physique, was just being able to get as strong as I was on those heavy hinges. I was doing like 5.5 plate RDLs, 6 plate SLDLs. This was like my bro arc lift. JP is the guy who mixes bro science with actual science the best out of anybody. He is the GOAT. When it comes to mindset, when it comes to practically applying literature, obviously he has some takes that I don't necessarily agree with, but a lot of the takes I think a lot of people can really benefit from, because he is probably one of the best mentors you could possibly have at an earlier age amongst all of this super complex, over the top, overcomplicated stuff that we talk about now. So for the longest time, I didn't even do a wide grip pull down. I didn't even know what frontal plane, sagittal plane was. I would just do sagittal plane movements for the lats, because JP, he's incredibly influenced by Coach Kasim, who's from N1 Nutrition, who's incredibly smart. I respect him tons. We do have different opinions, especially now, mainly about the teres and its involvement and shoulder adduction, all that stuff, but we can talk about that later. But anyway, for the longest time during COVID, which was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, I had a home gym, and I was just doing all N1 lab movements, and they're fantastic. It's just that I'm now a believer that they're incredibly redundant, especially when you're pulling in just slight deviations of degrees of shoulder flexion, all in the sagittal plane, which is going to bias your upper portion of your lats based on the fact that they have better relative leverage to extend the shoulder in that plane of motion. But anyway, so N1 was a big influence of me. JP was a big influence of me. And then around that time, obviously I was graduated high school. I went into university. I did like 2 years of business, absolutely hated it. And then obviously because I was doing personal training, I started online coaching around 6 years ago, give or take. So I've always been interested in literature and understanding physiology, nutrition, you name it. But then I went into academia, and I did 2 years of kinesiology. I never finished it, I never got my degree, but it really taught me a lot about just like the human body, the basics, anatomy, you name it. Now, majority of the stuff that I know now is strictly through self-study, because it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. If you guys don't know me, I study every single day when it comes to muscle physiology, nutrition, all things exercise science, anatomy. They're my biggest passions, right? So I love to apply that sort of mindset when it comes to my training. For all of you guys who know me, you know that I'm incredibly hypothetical and theoretical when it comes to my approach, but I also like to apply practical application where it stands. And at the end of the day, I'm a coach, so I know that just because I do some funky ass stuff doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to program that for my clients. A lot of my clients do basic movements. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of cuffs, as you guys can tell. But anyway, I'm yapping. So about 10 months ago, I got into full body. Prior to that, I was running upper lower. I finally took the pill and I went to full body because it's always something that I wanted to try. And I was kind of skeptical. I was reluctant to wanting to start. But once I started it, I fell in love. And obviously, understanding the physiology behind it, it makes the most sense for specifically a natural individual and for someone who's more intermediate to advanced. And now the reason why it's so important is two main factors, right? Number one is muscle is binary. We are either in a state of hypertrophy, we are growing muscle, or we are in a state of atrophy, right? So we know that atrophy occurs within 1 week, and we know this because the maintenance literature shows us that 3 to 4 sets performed once a week is enough to maintain the gains that you currently have. And remember that this is happening on a muscle fiber level, because hypertrophy is muscle fiber specific. If you want to say hypertrophy is motor unit specific, just to whatever, anyways, it's a talk for another time. So if it takes 3 to 4 sets once a week to maintain your gains, but then if you take those 3 to 4 sets and you split them up amongst 1 or 2 to 3 to even 4 sessions, well, now all of a sudden you build muscle. So the only possible explanation for that to actually be plausible is if atrophy actually does occur within a training week. So the more time that we can spend outside of a state of atrophy, the more time that we can be spending growing. So that is why higher frequency is more important. That's one. And then number 2 is there's going to be diminishing returns on every subsequent set that you do in a session per muscle group. What do I mean by this? Well, the first set that you do is going to be in a state of little to no fatigue, right? So because there's little to no fatigue, you're going to maximize what you can. You're going to maximize the recruitment that you can at that time and maximize mechanical tension. Now, every subsequent set, due to the accumulation of fatigue mechanisms being peripheral or supraspinal or spinal CNS fatigue, or a combination of all 3, there's going to be a reduction, and quite a reduction, in recruitment. And if you look at something like the Schoenfeld meta-analysis, it can be upwards of 50%, which is why we see that it takes around 6 sets to double the stimulus of 1 set, which in reality is impossible, because the fact that you're accumulating that fatigue every set, you will never be able to recruit those highest threshold motor units that you did in that first set, which again is the main benefit of training with higher frequency, especially full body. So that is going to be it for today. If you guys have any questions or you like these yaps, I'm about to head to the gym. I'm about to train full body. I've got my Optimal 2.0. Shout out TNF, shout out EKKOVISION. I love the family over there. They're fantastic. They treat me well. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys soon.